Hello, Vikings fans. Welcome back to the Skull Experience. Our guest tonight is Dustin Baker. So, Dustin, as we like to do with our special guests on this show, start out, tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us what you do, where people can find you, and, of course, how your Vikings fandom started. We will toss it over to you.
Okay, yeah. Primarily, if you want to experience my Viking stuff, it's mostly, I'd say, writing. I write all day, probably too much. VikingsTerritory.com. That's my site for publication. My dear friend Joe Johnson founded it about 5 years ago, and he unfortunately passed away in the summer of 2021. And I kind of inherited the writing part, and I work with his family to this day operating that. And then I have a YouTube show. It's not as fancy and cool with intro music as this one, Vikes Now, that I do daily, where I get on there and kind of spout my opinions. I also have a show that I do with Bryant McKinney called Believe in Vikings. Yeah, and that's pretty much where you can find me. I started as a Vikings fan in 1996. I was a kid living in Houston, Texas, right when the Houston Rockets were winning championships, and my stepdad got the word that we were moving to Minneapolis, and it took us 11 months to sell our house in Houston. And I was a lowly Oilers fan in 6th, 7th grade, trying to find a way to get away from the Oilers, who were like 2-14. Right. And so I identified the Vikings, who had Warren Moon as the quarterback, and everybody in Houston still loved Warren Moon. So I was like, I'm moving there, and that's going to be my team. And then, of course, Randy Moss hooked me for life. So I've been a fan since 1996. And I've been writing about the team since the summer of 2020. And it's a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, man.
I think Real Forno has like 2 Moon jerseys behind him on his show.
Oh, yeah?
I think that, that's a unique situation. I actually saw the Vikings play San Francisco, but Warren Moon, I lived a like 5-hour drive and I got to see the Vikings beat San Fran, and we got in the playoffs and won the division. Mm-hmm. But I had to see Sean Salisbury play instead because Warren Moon were saving him for the playoffs. So I saw Sean Salisbury and I saw about 10 passes worth of Steve Young.
Oh, so yeah.
But Vikings pulled it out. So I guess a win's a win.
Yeah, we always, before we found Culpepper and then before we found Cousins, we always did that weird carousel with Salisbury, Wilson, Gannon, and then in my
McMahon,
time, Jeff George. Yeah, McMahon.
George.
And now also, might even get into this. I will maintain until the day that I die that the reason they don't have a Super Bowl is they can't get their quarterback and stick with them for 10 years. For my lifetime, until they found Kirk, it's been this constant roundabout.
And
I've always liked to compare it to the Minnesota Twins in pitching. Just can never seem to get it all figured out, put together.
Well, and I found this stat when I was doing before the Green Bay game that since Favre became the starter in Green Bay, they've had since the year 1992 they've had 7 quarterbacks start a game, and that's because mainly Aaron Rodgers was getting injured, and thanks to Anthony Barr. And on the Vikings side since 92, we've had 26 quarterbacks start a game, and we almost could have had a 27th if we had the assured playout, second seed. But 26 compared to 7.
Yeah, and for the Packers' sake, that should really only be 2, and for our sake, it should really be like 25 because like Mannion doesn't count from
we'll try to block him out. And it's funny, I fly in for Christmas, and I go see the 17th game of the season 2019, and what do I get to see? I get to see Sean Mannion. So I'm the king of going to the Vikings games and seeing backup quarterbacks.
Oh no, yeah, you gotta, no matter what, if they resume it next year, whenever you see the Bears on the docket at US Bank Stadium, there's like an 80% chance that game's gonna mean nothing for anybody.
But of course, obviously the Bears were the last game of this season. It's been a season to remember. Man. And then me and Jamie have talked about this off the record and on some of our other shows. Like, this feels like just one of those seasons like 2009 felt and like 2017 felt. I'll be honest with you. I didn't start watching Vikings football till I was in like 11th grade or 10th grade, I believe it was. But all I ever heard up to that point
was about 4 years ago.
It was not quite. But all I ever heard to that point was this team's like, it's so hard to watch them. It's so frustrating. I watch 2009, Brett Favre comes in. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And then you get to the NFC Championship game, and you're just like,
this is what it is. Yep.
But then you are hooked after that. But it has the feel to that, and a little bit of 2017, where you feel like there's a lot to like. There's a lot of luck that's happened, but also it's like there's enough to keep you entertained, and the team is good. They just haven't 100% showing it in certain spots.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. You know they can close games. That's
Yeah.
a really good start. Pretty much something that
and I haven't
just
heard so
didn't
much
do
about
great on.
point differential in the last few weeks in my lifetime, you know.
Right. And obviously that was the thing in 2009, 2017, we were, you know, dominating some of those games and having some better wins. But this year it's just, it feels special still, but it's also felt a lot more frustrating. Like I remember I said back in week
The downs
6, like,
are low. The
yeah,
downs
and I
on the
remember I said
season
back in
are
week
low.
6, like I'm not going to get frustrated anymore. I'm just going to enjoy the ride, and that has not carried over. I've been frustrated every week, but I still enjoy the ride. Dustin, your thoughts on this season? What's it been like being a fan for you?
Oh, absolutely. I want to talk about that 2017 team real quick. 2017 team real quick. In contrast, you guys had Yannick Eckhart on here last week, and he and I were talking about even though I'm with you that they feel a same degree level of special. That Zimmer team hardly played any close games. It was the same, at that point, glorious style of Zimmer ball where you get up 24/7 or whatever, and then that's it. And in the early third quarter, you could pretty much start your afternoon because you know he's just going to suffocate the rest of the afternoon with defense. And this season, I've been begging for a win like that, even though they used to kind of get on our nerves because they weren't too exciting, because every game goes down to the wire. So yes, I think even if they got their asses stomped against the Giants, which I do not think will happen, we didn't expect this 13-4 in division title. I expected 11-6 playing second fiddle to the Packers, hopefully probably getting in the wild card 11-6, and then see where the chips will fall in the postseason. Well, they've done it the opposite. They've been somehow really good at winning, and every other metric says that they're just totally meh. So I have this degree of, all right, can they turn on this switch in the postseason and really shock the hell out of us? Because in 12 win or 13 seasons of yesteryear with the Vikings, like Casey was saying, you get pumped. The 2009 team felt like a team of destiny. 2017 was so good on defense. You're like, God, we can beat these guys. And I think most of us are waltzing these playoffs going, are we going to win? Are we going to win anything here? And so maybe that's what it takes for this franchise to get off the schneid, is that we're all limping into this thinking like, God, are they good or not? We don't really know. That's what I'm hanging my hat on for hope, is that maybe Cousins gets super duper hot. We know he can. I don't think that the defense would suddenly get good, because that would have happened by now. But I do believe if Cousins can get ultra good, like he used to in November, he saved it for December this year. I think that's their one big hope, to go on a run to get to the Super Bowl.
For sure. I know me and Jamie, speaking of that defense, we had kind of talked about it after the Lions game when, you know, Kevin O'Connell finally started to admitting, like, yeah, we got to look at this thing and make some changes. And, you know, I think we had Rap on this show too at one point, and he kind of agreed with us. He's like, it's just, you're never, like, they're not going to fix it. But me and Jamie always talk, like, but we want to just see like steps in the right direction. And I think since that Lions game, we have seen that. I mean, we're, you know, still allow a lot of yards and, you know, all this stuff, but we're trying different things, being a little more aggressive with some pass rush stuff. And, you know, and I again, I knew we weren't going to see a completely revamped, fixed defense, but it's nice just to see at least tweaks to it and trying to make a difference, which I feel like it has to a certain extent. Doesn't always show on the stat sheet, as we're seeing with the point differential and a couple blowout losses, but I like what I'm seeing a little bit better, but I still don't love it. Basically.
Yeah, it's flat out not a very good defense, and if it doesn't first force turnovers, it's a lousy defense.
Yeah.
It is. We keep calling it bend but don't break, but it really just breaks all the time. And then if it gets turnovers, then it enables the team to win. And they have this very strange tendency where in the fourth quarter, then they become a top 10 defense. And for the life of me, covering the whole season here since September, I'm like, why can't you just do that shit from the beginning? Can you guys do that? Put in that same onus, that same intensity. Just do that the whole game. Yeah. But it's like this mind block where they're like, no, it's third quarter. We can't play good. And then it gets to the fourth quarter and everybody looks around. They're like, all right, now it's time to go win.
Same with the offense when we're up. Like anytime we're up, we just, you know, we let every team come back. But as soon as we're down, it's just like our offense goes crazy every single time. Like obviously the Colts game, all these huge comebacks. It's like we need to be down for our offense just to, you know, play as good as we know that they can. I want to shout out some of these listeners here. Drew Neighbors, Bring It Home Vikes. Hey Dustin, Daddy by Camden.
Are you his
Posters.
Daddy? Are you Camden Coster's daddy?
My son's name is Stone. It is not Camden, and I don't know what connotation of daddy he's talking about.
He's got some hearts and blowing some kisses there. So
welcome back in, Paul.
Hey, Paul, what's going on? Skull of the Moon 2. Finally, use the TPC promo link to secure my NFC North champ gear. Yeah, let's go. Skull Nation, you guys keep up the purple pride. Always do. Juked. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Juked. How you doing? Hey, if you're listening for the first time on Minnesota Sports Talk, make sure you follow these guys on GG Sports, okay? GG Sports. And
GG
Dustin,
Sports.
just escaped me the name of your YouTube show.
Vikes Now.
Vikes Now. Have you broke 1,000 yet? I think you're close, right?
Oh, no, not yet. I think it's about 20-25 short of it.
Hey, let's get him over 1,000 right now, guys. I'm gonna run a telethon. Dustin Baker over 1,000. I'm gonna be watching up throughout the show. Let's get Dustin Baker, Vikes Now, over the 1,000 mark. Let's do it.
Yeah, we're not far away. Let's see.
Doing that. Hey, don't forget GG Sports Podcast. So
yeah, let's get them to 1,000 too. That might not get done tonight though.
We're quite a ways off, but eventually
we'll get there.
We'll find it.
But you were talking about hope on defense or just hope in general in playoffs. I don't know. We have so many veterans on this team on specifically defense: Kendricks, Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, Zadarius Smith. Everybody like that. I'm hoping like these guys they're running out of time to win a Super Bowl. And I know we've had this defensive coordinator issues, especially with just the fire out of our players on defense. We've been talking about that all season too. I'm hoping that this playoff situation kind of lights a fire under the ass of our veteran defending players. At least that's like where my hope's coming from is why our defense might step up in this playoffs. What do you think about that? Do you think there's any chance that obviously a lot of players are going to step it up because they're in this situation in playoffs, but I think a lot of veterans kind of really, that's even more important to them because their careers, they've been through it all and none of them have won Super Bowls. So I'm assuming, hopefully anyways, that kind of does that for them.
Yeah, there's kind of that sentiment for Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson, and I guess Kendricks all of a sudden because he doesn't look quite as effective as yesteryear. That, there is no tomorrow. You don't know how many times you're going to get back to the postseason. I don't think anybody at all will be shocked if we popped up next year, went 9-8, and missed it by a single game because that's kind of how a regression works sometimes, especially with that point differential you mentioned, Dave. But the problem right now is that we love those guys so much. All Kendricks, they're all originals except for Peterson, but he feels like an original now. But they're kind of slow now, and that's why I think this defense does all of the yards allowed sends is because we're used to those dudes in their prime, and we can't envision living without them. But in reality, when you see Brian Asamoah come in, that's why it's so titillating, is because he's fast and he's a playmaker, exactly what these guys used to be. But to your point, I have this really strange hope that maybe there's something that Donatel and O'Connell have been saving for the postseason on defense, because there is still a lot of talent there, especially up front with Zadarius, Daniil, Harrison Phillips, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Tonga all of a sudden is pretty good. Like that should be good enough to win a couple ball games here. So I have this fantasy that they've saved it for the postseason, which would be really weird. But when you look at all the dudes, there's enough dudes on there to make a little push. They just got to do it against the Giants team that isn't ultra talented, but certainly found some good playmakers when they played this 2.5 weeks ago.
And it's a Giants, not this specific team, but a Giants team that has twice now, right? Came into playoffs, is not a team that was a powerhouse going into it and ended up with Super Bowls. So it's not impossible. So there is hope out there for us, but this isn't going to be the year for the Giants. It's got to be the one for us, hopefully.
So Dustin, a couple things I did want to ask you, since you're bringing up a couple points, and I want to get your take on some of this stuff. So we had Wabi on here about maybe a month ago, and we were talking about the defense, and he thought it was, and we've heard a lot of different things. Everyone has their own opinion. Like he thought it was a lot more players not knowing what to do than it was a bad scheme. I'm curious first off, what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, well, Donatel,
and then we're going to rate your answer from 1 to 10.
Donatel has never had a powerhouse scheme or defense. It's usually in its peak form, maybe fringe top 12. It's serviceable. And I really don't know why he was the first choice for defensive coordinator. He's an awesome dude. Remember that first press conference he had way back in February?
Yeah,
it
I was
like,
pumped about him.
Oh
after
yeah,
that.
and I still like him. It's just that this idea, like, if we're going to promote this bend but don't break, I just don't understand it, because they give up big plays anyway, and they break. But man, just parking it on the players and saying they need to execute better. I just don't know if I buy into that too wholesale, because they've had now 4 months to get with the program, and we know that most of them are solid players. I really just think it comes down to what I mentioned 2 minutes ago, that we don't quite have the speed that we once had. And as we transition into an even pass happier and speedier NFL, some of these guys like Kendricks, they're getting left behind, and you hate to say it out loud because he's such a good dude and he's been so good since 2015. Right. So no, I would ultimately put the accountability on the coach, and if indeed he's not the problem, then it's Kwesi Adofo-Mensah who has to rebuild the defense on the fly starting in March.
And that's perfect, because that actually leads me right into my next question, or my next point that I want to get your thoughts on. Is I've kind of had that thought process that this last draft, I feel like he's already kind of started to make those transitions. Like, you look at his first few picks, you look at Lewis Cine, who I think eventually was the plan to come in and be that next Harrison Smith on this defense. He takes a guy like Brian Asamoah to come in and eventually replace a guy like Eric Kendricks. Like, you're taking some of these older guys, replacing them with younger guys with more speed. He drafts some cornerbacks that he likes to eventually replace Patrick Peterson. So, I mean, I kind of feel like he's already started to make those, like the thought process of these guys that got a lot of money coming their way. We're going to have to try to make changes on them eventually. I feel like he's already kind of started to think about the competitive rebuild. Like, we have 13 wins this year, but yet we're still building up some of these younger guys, learning from these vets. So when it's their time, they'll step in and won't even miss a beat. Do you think that's a fair thought process on that?
Not just fair, but spot on. 5 of the first 6 picks in an offensive-minded coach's first draft were on defense. So they are certifiably rebuilding on the fly on defense. It was prioritized. And Asamoah and Cine are speed merchants. They're faster than your average bear. And so, yes, that's been the vision all along. I just don't think that we knew back in August that Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks would just be decent or serviceable. Right. I still thought, all right, these guys are going to be maniacs and they're going to get a bunch of tackles. And they're not liabilities. They're just not prolific anymore. And Hicks has always just been steady Eddie. Kendricks was an all-pro in 17 or 18? And we don't see that production anymore. And when you have these wide receivers flying all over the field, you need speed at the off-ball linebacker position. And we really only have 2 in this style of defense. And when they're just average speed or diminished speed, it's not cutting it. But Casey, to your credit, this is already happening. And this is why there wasn't a tear it down, scorch it to hell rebuild, is because Kwesi Adofo-Mensah believes you can do both. And it just so happened that he prioritized defense instead of doing the roster rebuild that some clamored for.
Yep. And then, of course,
and honestly, even with the offense, I feel like he's hit some diamonds in the rough. As soon as we actually drafted, I went and looked at what Ty Chandler and Jalen Nailor were like, and I compared it, not to say Nailor is as good as Diggs was, but Diggs fell to the 5th round because of injury throughout his college career. Jalen Nailor fell, and he was off to a prolific senior season, or last year. I forget if he had a extra year because of COVID. But he broke his hand, and he was on his way to a 1,000-yard season. I thought, 38-inch vert. I mean, he was a big play dude. And then I thought, well, that got a steal in the 6th round. Then I go look at Ty Chandler, and he was on like this running back committee at Tennessee, but then went to North Carolina, became this all-around back with a 4.38 speed. I'm like, you found some guys, Kwesi. I thought, I can't wait to see these guys on the field.
Yeah, you might recall, I think it was back in July or August, ESPN, Kevin Seifert picked like a standout performer. Somebody from ESPN did. Nailor was one of them. Or even Paul Allen said that Nailor could be the WR2.
Oh, he loved Nailor. Yeah,
you're right. I think we're seeing glimpses of it. Took a little longer than we'd like. Right. But he is fast as hell. He was on my show with McKinney back when he got drafted. He's a cool
I'm
dude.
Jealous. You're making me jealous, man.
And then Ty Chandler, we saw the burst that he had in the preseason, and I think you can put Dalvin Cook right in there with the speech I just gave about Kendricks and Harrison Smith, is that they're all lovable guys and productive football players, But compared to the dudes that are waiting in the wings, those guys they're younger, faster, and they're cheaper. And I think that's the big kicker here is all of these titans of industry names that were floating around make a lot of money. And I think that's some of the fat that will be cut from the roster, and nobody wants to talk about it yet because we're right in the middle of the playoffs.
Oh, we're talking about it. We've talked about it.
Yep.
What have we got here? Vikings Jerome, thanks for jumping in.
All right,
Joseph, thank you as well. Appreciate the viewership. And then, of course, your thoughts on the head coach, Kevin O'Connell. I got to ask you that.
Oh, man, what a change of pace. So I'll give you a good barometer. My mom is a lifelong Vikings fan, but doesn't certainly watch any game or whatnot. And she knew from early age that they were going to let you down frequently, like to the tune of 4 Super Bowls. So she'll get invested in these seasons where they're winning, and she knows how much I love them. When they hired this guy, she was like, oh my goodness, this guy is the real deal. Like she's like, just watched us. This is before they even had like a win to their credit. So now every time he wins, he gives like almost the same speech about, we haven't played our best football yet. And, I love this team with all of my fiber. My mom eats that up. And I think that's important because she's a casual Vikings fan that's been around watching the Vikings since the 70s. And I think he's inviting a lot of folks back who got disillusioned with the mediocrity that was suffered in 2020 and 2021. I enjoyed Mike Zimmer a lot. I loved his attitude, just like somebody's grandpa. But I think that Parcellsian approach got stale, A, with the Vikings, and B, with the NFL. And so O'Connell is the anti-Zimmer, my goodness, in terms of everything, philosophical approach, and then just the way he carries himself. So yeah, it was an A+ hire. And again, I'll reiterate, even if they lose this weekend, which would really suck in general, he still has won 13 games this year. It's a tremendous building block for the future, and it's the best effort by a first-year Vikings coach ever.
Yep.
Yeah, 11-5, and now it's 13-4. It probably will never be broken.
Which, by the way, though, I do want to bring us up. I know, Dustin, you said beforehand you did not see the Vikings winning 13 games. Jamie can attest. I actually did. In our preseason schedule breakdown, I had 13-4, so I feel pretty.
My goodness, they probably thought you were nuts. There must have been some people that got a lot of looks.
I got a lot of looks. But actually, it was funny because a couple of looks I got were from one of my friends. They're all him and his family from Minnesota, but his brother and dad, I believe, are both Giants fans. So we were both having talks like you guys, the Vikings aren't going like 13, whatever. They're not going to win that many games. So the Giants aren't going to win many games either. And look at us now.
Yeah,
the Giants.
Also on top
game. 2 rookie head coaches who I think both should get a lot of coach of the year votes because what they've done. And I think this is going to be a really fun matchup. So if anybody got anything else before we jump into
we can't have a podcast, especially before playoffs, without mentioning, Captain Kirk Cousins. Dustin, where are you at with Kirk Cousins? I know everyone else in this is at with that. Where are you at with that? And then what do you think losing and winning in this, like, what do you think the playoffs could do to him as far as from the perspectives of the fans?
Well, I kind of came to notoriety in this Vikings community because of Kirk Cousins, and I just spent a lot of time in 2020 dispelling the falsehoods about him, like the dink and dunk stuff.
Is that why you and Janik are good friends?
Yeah.
Are Janik? Sorry.
That's kind of a call to arms for us. And so I don't think it's any secret that I enjoy Cousins, but there was this. For a few months there, people just thought I was the ultimate Cousins guy. And I'm like, no, I like him as much as I like Bradford and all the other dudes. I'm just saying you guys lie about him. You didn't really lie about Bradford. But yeah, with Cousins, I actually thought he was a better quarterback last year. For my money, by all the numbers, he seemed like a more steady, consistent in the first, second, and third quarter of games quarterback last year. But then out of nowhere, he just came up with this fourth quarter comeback acumen. And that's what really gets eyes on the television screen, is that this guy can do it in the clutch. So with that $35 million mark, I don't know if they'll add another year on again, like they always do, or let this one play out. He has a no trade clause. So even if they did want to move him, it would be a little awkward. Right. But Jamie, thanks for asking that. I talked about this on my show, is that quietly, this is a humongous game for Cousins because, this is a 13-win season. There's no excuses to get bounced by the Giants, who really aren't that intimidating. They're hungry, but they're not that good. The roster compared to the other 14 dance participant playoffs is kind of like, yeah, all right. Well, we'll see. But in theory, if Cousins had one of those off games, like a bad Kirk game, or was just mediocre, and they lost, oh my goodness, all of this goodwill that he's stocked up since September 11th when the season began, it'd come crashing down. If he was just completely ho-hum, like couldn't really get going, and the Vikings lost however they lost, whether it was defense's fault or Dalvin fumbled in the fourth quarter, it wouldn't matter. We saw the Cardinals game in 2021. Cousins did everything that he needed to do. Joseph missed the dinker field goal, and then we were like, oh, they should have went down and tried to score a touchdown. It's like, no, the guy should have made the field goal. But yeah, with Cousins, we will totally reignite the debate no matter how they lose if they lose to the Giants. I just don't think that they're going to lose to the Giants.
Yeah.
Dustin, you should have read my first quarter text I would get from my other co-host, Rap. It'd be like, I'm done with them. Oh, blah, blah. Oh, come back. 33 points. What the F? Oh, my God. Hey, I got it saved, man. I got it saved. But yeah, you should see some of our text messages on the purple code, which we all broadcast on. Yeah, it's some miserable times if they're doing bad, but then the comeback and they're like still trying. People still try to double down on it was all his fault. We won, but we won. Hold it. We didn't lose. It's like, yeah, it's like, can you get over it, guys? We won. Let's go. Let's move on. Let's cheer it on. But yeah, I get you. I get it. And you brought Yannick, and I want to stick on this because you brought Yannick. You invited Yannick, he said, to come to a game, and he shows up, and we're losing 33-0.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
What was he thinking? I like it, and then he ends up seeing the best game like ever.
Right? Yeah. He's you probably recognize our background here. Yeah, he's been at my house here since December 14th. I invited him to come to this Vikings experience. So we were going to go to the Giants game as well, but I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, so we were actually snowed in. We couldn't get to the stadium because the roofs were closed. But I took him to Chicago last weekend, and we had second row seats right on the Vikings sideline.
Nice.
Yeah, that was pretty fantastic. But here's the deal about the Colts game. So that was his maiden voyage at US Bank Stadium, and I took him there 33-0 at halftime. And straight up, I said to him, I was like, if they do some 3-and-out shit and start this quarter, do you want to just go and we'll go eat? We'll have a good day. And he was like, no, I've never been here. We might as well stay. And I'm like, you want to sit through an hour and a half worth of this garbage? And he's like, why not? And I would have left if it wasn't for him. I've been at those games before. The Cowboys game, I scooted with the start of the fourth quarter because I was pissed. And so I would have missed out on the greatest NFL comeback in history if it wasn't for him. We just stayed like, humor him. And then, they kept playing Don't Stop Believing by Journey. And we were like, is this going to really happen?
I told that son of a bitch, you better be at every freaking game from now on.
Yeah, he'll be there.
I had no idea you knew each other. I'm not on Twitter 24/7. I mean, I got followers and stuff. So I had no idea you and Sally did a podcast together. I just happened to have her on. And I'm like, hold on, I got Dustin going on. Yeah, we do a podcast together. And then I had Yannick on, and he's like, yeah, Dustin asked me to come over. I'm like, is Dustin like the king of Twitter? And sure enough, you are. I found out. You did the queens of Twitter, of the Viking queen, and we heard that actually that the Twitter files have came out, and there's an investigation going into your Viking queens of Twitter voting. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. I wouldn't say there's an investigation, but I can tell you that there was tomfoolery. So I came up with 32 awards. We do it every year. It's our third year. And that was the one category there was any type of controversy.
Craziness.
Yeah. So somehow, I don't know who it was, somebody, and it wasn't Sally, went and just bought votes like with crowdsourcing bots. It was very important. And then it turned like into an arms race where everybody had to do that, evidently, because it had like enough votes to fill like the city of Andover. And most of the other awards had like 1,500 votes. Yeah. And so that one was hijacked, sabotaged. And I think even the winner was purchased just to stop all of the turmoil. So next year we'll do the VTAs, but we're not going to have king or queen because I'm not going to live through the text messages saying, what are you going to do about this? I'm like, I'm not doing anything.
Dude, that was competitive. The queen.
Sally says she's still the reigning queen of Twitter. So we told her, okay, we'll go with that.
Oh yeah, I support that. We're good.
And we've had Shelby on too. I've had her on twice now.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, we've had her on twice. She's a fun time. Sally was a fun time. I hope everybody maintains their friendship. Cool. Oh yeah, you got that.
Yep, that was a Shelly special.
Nice.
Yep.
No, it's funny how it was just that was really competitive, and I thought it was funny because you had the nice person Twitter award, and then Ali was on there. Who Ali was one of our very first guests ever on our show. So
Oh,
like
okay.
right away, of course, I voted for him, and I wrote like, "Hey, let's go Ali." And then one of the other nice guys on there liked that tweet. So I was like, of course, like this, the queen one, the queen one is super competitive. And then of course, like I vote for one guy, shout him out, and then the other guy likes my tweet. Like that's such a nice guy thing to do. So I'm like, that's funny, the difference between
I know.
that.
Even Ollie's little, I call it victory speech, whatever it was like, yeah, I did deserve this. It should go to somebody. And I was like, that's a real nice guy thing to say.
That was so funny.
Yeah,
there is a big question that I personally want to know if this could possibly happen. Now, me and Jamie are married, and Casey is our single guy. And who does he have to bang that we can be nominated for the Podcast of the Year award?
Oh.
Who does Casey got to bang?
You got some cash too.
Let's see.
Just nominate.
Well,
here's the B category down here. You can vote them if you want, but just to be nominated.
I think the straightforward answer, unfortunately, would be me.
Casey, you got some work to do.
But I think the better strategy is the way the nomination process works is just to have folks comment on it. So you have
we'll get that going.
11 months now to either bang who you need to bang or spread the word or both.
Casey, come on now.
Okay, option B sounds a lot more.
We're going with option B. Casey does not have to give up his all right. So let's move on.
Good idea. Let's move on to some football discussion. So we talked about let's start this off with talking about the whole like the nice guy thing. You know, Minnesota people, nice people. Midwesterners. We got called too nice by the center of the Giants, and that said that the stadium when they were here on Christmas Eve wasn't loud enough. And I think that was one of the worst decisions that guy could have made, because this Sunday, I think that place can be extra rocking now.
It will. There's just no other way around it. So every now and then, I'd say about once a year. So I go to all the home games and about 1 or 2 road games of the year. But every now and then, notably in 2021, it was the Halloween game against the Cowboys and Cooper Rush. You go into it thinking, all right, this is going to be a sweet game. And then the crowd just is kind of quiet. And usually it involves them getting their ass beat a little bit and taking the wind out of their sails like Micah Parsons did this year in the Cowboys game. But uncharacteristically in the Giants game, even though I wasn't at that one because of the snowstorm, I kept hearing that. They're like, oh, yeah, the crowd is subdued. And we're like, the whiteout looks great, but the crowd is subdued. And I don't think there's any rhyme or reason for it. Maybe because it was a Christmas Eve crowd and they're just not as rowdy. But yeah, I've also been there when it is unrowdy and it is loud as F. And I don't think that, was it Nick Gates, who thinks that because he went to the University of Nebraska, originally from Nevada, that he's a Midwesterner? That doesn't work that way, sir. No. So yeah, I know he was just asked a question and then responded off the cuff, but he really kicked a hornet's nest for people that care, because I can assure you that in the first playoff game in 5 years, Kirk Cousins' first game as a Viking home playoff game, and then the first-year head coach in his first home playoff game, it's not going to be quiet. And especially because you said that, Nick, it's going to be even louder now. So congratulations.
I love it when they give us bulletin board material. In fact, they should put it on the big screen every time it's third down.
Yeah.
You know, or first down for that matter. I don't care. Every down, just put it up there. Let's go and put the meter right next to it.
Everybody watched in 2020 The Last Dance documentary with Michael Jordan, and he talked about the obsessive ways they try to motivate themselves. Like they lie to themselves to find things like, all right, this guy insulted me, so I'm going to go out there and drop 60. And so we're not quite athletes, or at least not anymore, but fans are going to take it personally.
Especially
and be like,
fans.
Yeah, and this one will be sold out. You know, it's already a hot ticket. And again, just because of the playoff drought, there's this very weird thing where the Vikings, since that building opened, have the 4th best home field advantage in football, but have only played 1 playoff game there. So I think that, you know, folks like myself, and if any of you three are going, you're chomping at the bit to see a playoff game, because it's been a long time. And the last time they had one, it just happened to be miraculous. So yeah, he's going to eat those words, and I'm looking forward to it.
What's the last time we had against Seahawks?
No, Saints Miracle.
Music
dumb.
Miracle, yeah.
Yep.
Seahawks was the last one I went to.
Yeah, that I was there too, and you know, with with the cold, and it was almost worth it. Almost worth it to go out there and brave like frostbite.
I threw my hat all the way across the bar. I was
Yeah,
I was so pissed.
Yeah, that was a cold walk back to the car.
Not for Bud Grant though. He was perfectly fine.
Bud Grant.
Yeah, he was fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to watch this game. Obviously, I'm excited to see what Kevin O'Connell, what he pulls up in this game. Got to give a little bit of credit to the coach on the other side with Brian Daboll. Like, I don't think a lot of Giants fans are expecting themselves to be here. I think that the way that the Giants are planning the season to go is maybe get 4 or 6 wins, see some improvement from Brian Daboll, get a new attitude in there, maybe realize Danny Dimes isn't the guy, move on from him. Saquon does okay, whatever, keeps you competitive, move on from Saquon, and then just kind of start over. But now they've hit a point where they're in the playoffs. Right. They're probably going to keep both Danny Dimes and Saquon Barkley. I think you got to give a lot of credit to Daboll. I know me and Jamie were high on Daboll, as I think a lot of Vikings fans were in the coaching search. Yeah, I think he's an absolute stud of a coach. I think he's going to be a really good coach for them for a really long time. So I had to give him a little bit of credit before we start crapping on their team and saying that this Sunday is going to be a different ball game and the Vikings are going to win. But, it is what it is.
Yeah.
What do you think of this, Dustin? They blitzed the hell out of us this last game, right?
Yeah. Lovely.
Do you feel like they have showed us what, that was a detriment to them, because now we're going in the playoff game and we've seen it all and we're prepared for it? Do you feel that way?
We have our offensive line. That's like the scariest thing about this game, probably in my opinion, is that defensive line versus our offensive line that isn't the same as it was even at that game.
Center to right is tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it was any other position on the field other than offensive line, I'd probably say, we know them, we're good. But I still have these demons in my brain about the offensive line. And now minus Udo, who knows on minus O'Neal plus Udo. Without Bradbury, I have visions of, Wink Martindale, the game show host's son, Wink Martindale Jr., sending the house. He loves to do it on third down. And so I do not think it's a good thing that he likes to do that. I think that if there's any way to the Vikings to get it would be to what Jamie was saying, and that is Wink Martindale, who is a master of these blitz packages, getting to the Vikings and getting to Cousins. But like the only saving grace is we know they like to do that. If I know it here in my kitchen, then they know it there in Egan, and therefore the Vikings should be able to burn them a couple times when they dial that up. But no, I am not excited about a diminished patchwork offensive line going against a blitz-happy defense with Kayvon Thibodeau on it.
Yeah.
What do you think of Oludo, how he performed now that he's moved back to his more natural position?
Oh, I love it. So he got a real bad rap. Every time we bring up this topic on the show with McKinney, the Believe in Vikings show, we talk about how Zimmer used to play musical chairs. And Brian McKinney every single time says the same thing. He's like, I hate when they do that shit. Why can't they just use the backup when somebody gets hurt? Because you'll remember when it happened with Zimmer, they'd be like, oh, let's see. Dakota Dozier played left tackle. He could be right guard this week. And nobody knows why they did that. Now, this year, Udo goes back to what his roots are, and that's a reservist tackle. And I think that we just have the memories of penalty flags. We're like, oh, this guy sucks. He can't. It's because he was playing a position he wasn't supposed to. They were trying out solutions. And anytime the Zimmer and Kubiak combination did that on the offensive line, it usually was just disastrous. So I trust this offense first head coach in O'Connell to figure out the best offensive line solution. And we saw it bits and pieces against Chicago. I only say bits and pieces because their defense sucked in general. So who knows? Right. But Chris Reed, we knew he was going to be fine. He's a damn good football player. He did not have an enviable spot in Green Bay, getting thrown in there and had so many penalties. But yes, Udo, I think, is a fine and dandy reservist tackle. Not as good as O'Neal. Not many are. We'll see if it holds up against the Giants. I think it'll be decent.
I mean, the 2 games that when he got in and then he started this last game, it's like he did fine. Like he protected him. Yeah. And it goes to what you were saying about like this musical chairs. Well, they did that with Cleveland. He came in as a left tackle. We put him at right guard and we put him at left guard. Well, this is the first year he's got to play the same position twice in a row. So I think he's done fairly well for himself there. And our only weakness in offensive line has been in the middle, and it's kind of center right guard situation, the communication there. And God, if Ed Ingram steps on Kirk Cousins' foot even one time in this game, I'm gonna flip out. But Ed Ingram's gonna be a good player in this league, I think. And just don't step on Kirk Cousins' foot.
Yeah. Ingram's had a couple good games in the last month, decent games.
Yes.
And I think he'll grow. He's just like any other rookie. We get spoiled sometimes when rookies come in like Micah Parsons and they're good to go from game one. And that's not usually how it works. Right. And I think Ingram will do good as a solid sophomore. And yeah, I am very high on Udo to keep the ship afloat. It's just generally speaking in the postseason when you have Chris Reed and Ed Ingram, like we're to the point where we're like, yeah, that's pretty good. They're doing okay. But that doesn't matter when you're going up against Dexter Lawrence, who are like all pro or Pro Bowl caliber players. They're going to beat even the really good offensive lines, let alone the combination of Ingram and Bradbury. So it all just is a matter of how much they get through to give Cousins a hard time.
Yeah, for
He
sure.
put
And
Viking Jerome up there. Greg Joseph needs a big game. I actually felt really good that he got some outside work this last game, even though he missed an extra point.
Yeah.
He just can't seem to aim straight on extra points, but especially outside. But he overcame that, and he played fairly well the rest of the game. So,
Yeah.
How do you feel about Greg Joseph righting the ship again the second time?
Oh, I've been on an odyssey, man. With him, it's been 2 year long, and I think there was a game. Was it maybe the Patriots game? I remember sitting in the stadium, and I tweeted like, "This Greg Joseph shit has gone from a nuisance to a certified problem," and that was all that missed extra points. But then with the in crunch time after the Cardinals fiasco last year, he does seem to get his poop in a group when the game's on the line. And that's really all you can ask for. We have this really odd thing where we think that Greg Joseph, man, he's money. He can hit from 61. And then we're like, oh God, he's kicking an extra point. Isn't that weird that we have that sweet and sour? Like, yeah. I wish, but as a Viking fan and these damn kickers, you're like, all right, let me just keep the guy who can make game winners. We'll deal with the other stuff. So I would say, yeah, I'm about 75% high on him. And I just expect extra points to be missed. That's all there is to it. Just in the same vein that now that when they're in crunch time, I'm like, yeah, I can trust him. It's not an extra point. He'll make it. So yeah, I like him. If Kwesi went in a different route this March or April, I'd be fine with that too. But he's earned my trust, especially the last time when he beat the Giants.
Yeah, that was an amazing. I mean, I was just sitting in my parents' house, enjoying a nice Christmas cocktail, feet up, like, not even a concern. I was not pacing back and forth.
I already called bullshit on that, man. I did a short and called bullshit on that already.
Yeah. But no, that's kind of where I was, sold on Joseph again. Like, you knew he had the talent because he showed us it before. Mm-hmm. And then the game in Green Bay, people gave him a lot of shit. I said, nobody played well in Green Bay. You can't, if you're going to, talk shit about the rest of the team, you can't just single out the kicker. It's got to be everybody. That game was just a complete.
He missed both left and right that game. Usually it's just one way.
Yeah, but that game was just a complete and utter disaster where everybody sucked. But I don't know. But then obviously they played well against Chicago. But I'm super excited for this game. I think it's going to be a very entertaining football game to watch. I mean, playoff football, especially Vikings football at US Bank Stadium. Fans are, like what we talked about earlier, fans are going to have a little bit something extra to cheer about, be loud. I know Justin, me and Jamie just recorded an episode with Justin Day, and he said, like, every time that if there's a false start or a bad snap or something, or the center does something, the crowd's going to get extra loud for him. And I don't know. It's fun when the other team gives you a reason to be extra motivated to be loud. And I think
it's a team that we already beat.
Dustin, you got a show tonight, right? You got a show tonight in like 15 minutes?
Yeah, I have NFL themed show, and then I'm recording with McKinney tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Cool. So we can wind this down. Let's closing thoughts and score predictions. Let's end it with that. Dustin, you're the guest. Let's start with you.
Okay, I've naturally given this a lot of thought, and so here's the deal. I've predicted a convincing Vikings win for about 3 times in the last month, thinking, all right, this is going to be the game, baby, where they're going to win. I'm not even talking like 44-0. I'm talking about something really cool, like 27-10, baby.
That'd be nice.
Those aren't even allowed. And so I've settled on if I can't get that right, then it's not going to happen this year because they're certainly not going to crush the 49ers next week. So I think that all of this reeling us in with these teeny tiny suspense thriller victories, winning by 8 points, winning by 6 points, winning by 3 points. I think it's all this big precursor that we get into the postseason, and then we're all expecting this nail biter because the Giants love to play nail biters too, that this is going to be the game that goes on cruise control. So I have the Vikings 30-13 and their first convincing win since week 1. And remember, they have not beat a team by 17 or more points since 2019.
Ooh.
Greatest show on turf this Sunday.
What do you guys got?
I'm gonna go with a more modest. I mean, I've tried giving multi-scored victories, and it just never works for me. So
Yeah.
I'm going like
Work
I'm
for
feeling
anybody,
like a
but-
28-21 type game. I feel like it's still decently convincing. Like, I don't know, Giants get that touchdown and then have to recover an onside kick, which probably bounces off of Vikings' hands into the air, but then JJ comes through and just snipes it on that hands team and ends the game. But there's still gonna be that little like heart skipping a beat, like, oh God, are we gonna find a way to lose this? But we won't. 28-21. I'm feeling something around there.
Yeah, I got I'm with you, Dustin. I think we're coming into this playoffs. I think we're gonna have a fire under our ass. We have shown our heart and our ability to overcome stuff at the end of these games. And I think in those big situations, and I think we're gonna continue doing that in playoffs. And if you have any hope to win a Super Bowl, we can't go into this game with a close score against the Giants. We have to go in there and beat their ass and kind of have that momentum going throughout playoffs to hope we can continue doing that. So I'm going to go with hope here. I'm going to go with 26-14. Greg Joseph misses an extra point. But we still win 26-14.
And the only opinion that matters, I'm going to go 20.
Right, now you tell us what the score is going
27-20. I'm going to say it's comfortable. It's going to be one of those late scores that don't matter.
Okay.
We win the game. But yeah, I feel like we're comfortable the whole game. They just get this late score and make it look like it was a closer game than it was.
Yeah. So Dustin,
in my opinion.
So Dustin and Jamie are on the same page, and me and Dave are on the same page. So it all works out.
Yeah.
But
We're winning this.
And we feel like
a team we should.
We feel like a unique breed because if you start listening to the NFL media, even just early in the week, I think it's because that they're so starved to see a successful New York football team that it's over. It's beyond fashionable now. The NFL media really thinks that this is the Giants' game to lose, which is, I get it. You have to pick some upsets, and of course, the team with the negative point differential is going to be that. One other thing, in case I forget when we log off here, or whatever, I want to tell you guys. So you'll recall on Sunday night, each and every one of you was watching the Lions and cheering for them as if they were the Vikings. You will be doing that this Saturday afternoon for the Seahawks, because if the Seahawks win, that fundamentally changes everything about Vikings Giants, because you'd be playing either Brady or Prescott at home. If it's Prescott, you have a revenge game against them for beating your ass November, blah, blah, blah. And then if it's Brady, you have an opportunity to retire Brady. So with that same enthusiasm that you cheered for the little engine that could Lions, you need the Seahawks to win, because then you'd have a second home playoff game. Otherwise, I don't know if any of you is going to get ballsy enough to pick the Vikings over the 49ers, because this guy's not.
but that game though, but that Seahawks 49ers game it's a divisional matchup, a third matchup where 49ers have won both games. And yeah, Brock Purdy's been good, but it's playoff, baby. It's totally different.
It's so Pete Carroll, as the Seahawks head coach, is 18-9 against various forms of the 49ers, from Nolan, Singletary, Harbaugh, Shanahan. And so he has their number. And to your point, Casey, they've won twice already. And it's kind of that adage that you have to beat them 3 times. The one thing about Purdy is, yes, he's played great, and they're whatever they are, 5-0 with him. But I was telling Josh Fry earlier today, who's the editor of Purple PTSD, that there's going to come a game, whether that's against Seattle or the Vikings or the Eagles, where he has 3 minutes to go win the game. And then he's probably going to do something that Mr. Irrelevant would do, like throw an interception or an incomplete pass, 4th and 10, game over. And then on that Monday morning afterward, we're going to look at each other and be like, we really thought Brock Purdy was going to take us to the promised land. The guy was Brock Purdy. And so I think that all of this goodwill, he deserves it. Great. But I think this is a different animal in the playoffs. And I think he'll have to pay the piper on a game-winning drive. And then it'll have all of us scratching our head being, we really got hoodwinked into thinking that guy could do it, didn't we?
Yep, for sure. But
yeah, hopefully, hopefully that happens against the Vikings in round 2 if they do beat Seattle. If they do beat Seattle,
I hear you.
That would have been kind of cool if Seattle would have lost, though, and the Lions went into playoffs, and then we were relying on the Lions 2 weeks in a row. But
obviously. Well, and then after watching them against the Packers, shit, they could have beat the 49ers.
Yeah, I know. I would have felt better for the Lions than Seattle for sure.
If I ever coach, I'm a basketball fan at heart. I played basketball in high school, and I know that game better than football. If I ever coach my son's basketball teams, I swear to God, I'm going to point to that game on Sunday night you know, if you're in a consolation game, an AAU tournament or something, like there was no distinguishing factor between the Lions playing for the playoffs and playing for pride. There was nothing. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, that they played as if they didn't know they had been eliminated.
Yeah, and Dan Campbell's thing of if they're not going, or if we're not going, they're not going.
That's what I like
and
about
just,
Dan
and
Campbell.
like the riskiness, like the hook and ladder play, the going for it on 4th and 2.
Yeah.
Like, what do we got to lose? The only thing, it's just like we can kick these guys out of the playoffs, and there is no better way for me personally. Like, the Vikings are in. There's no better way to end like the final game of the 2022-2023 regular season, watching the Lions of all teams and the Packers' hopes and dreams. Like, I'm a pretty big fan of Tom Grossi. He's a big Packer YouTuber. So I mean, I think he does really good work over there, but I had to watch all of his reactions to like the loss and stuff.
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
He was just heartbroken.
Yeah, I just love watching people heartbroken.
Yannick and I were at the Congress Plaza Hotel in Chicago, and I kid you not, we were like on the edge of our respective beds watching the game as if it was the Vikings. Like, we were sitting there like, come on, baby. Like, you know, because we knew that the Packers were about to lose, and usually they wait until they play the 49ers in the postseason and then they lose, but this one was just a little premature. The Lions did everything the Vikings wanted to do the week before.
Yep.
That's why
before we head out, I want to make sure everybody, if you're still listening right now, go to Vikes Now, one word smushed together, at Vikes Now. Vikes Now, go to his channel, hit subscribe. Let's get him to 1,000. I didn't do you very good tonight because it's still at 983, but hey, I want anybody who's still listening, damn it, stop what you're doing, go to another tab, Vikes Now. Let's go. Let's get some subs to this guy.
It's free.
He's the king of Twitter.
It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and all you get is Vikings content. So why not subscribe to every Vikings
twist your arm. Twist your arm. All right.
For sure. But anyway, Dustin, thanks a lot for joining us.
So
it was
much,
a lot of fun.
Why don't you guys you guys hit my line, whether it's before free agency or if we make a little run the playoffs. I'd love to come chat with you guys again. You holler at me.
Yeah,
we'll do, man.
We'll do free agency. We're going to dive into a lot of draft stuff, I think, this offseason. So we should have all kinds of content to go into.
And we'll dump plan A and work on plan B, trying to get podcast of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's Casey's job.
We'll dump plan A. We got plan B going.
I don't know. I think plan A is going to be more effective, but
he just needs to be a little promiscuous. It'll be fine. All right, gentlemen.
All right, man.
Thanks. See you guys.
All right. See ya. All right.
Great show.